there been any change in the kind of applications that you're seeing? And more importantly, I think, what's the profile of the applicant that you look for? How should our students here help themselves stand out in the, tornado of applications that schools are receiving now? Dr. Renuka?
Yeah, so, I think profiles by and large, I'm not sure have changed too much, frankly. That's not what we are seeing. But it's been happening over the last few years. I don't think it has happened in the last year or so, but over the last about 4-5 years, we see a far higher application base coming from startups, people who have become entrepreneurs and they started their own business or work for a small company, which is a startup. And we know that in India, there's a big, huge wave of entrepreneurship that is on at the moment in the last few years also. So we see a lot more applications coming in from applicants who are, from small companies, but have a huge and deep experience in hands-on working. So that kind of is what I see. In terms of diversity, India being India, we do see a lot more engineers applying. That has been the trend. But fortunately, we now do see people applying from other fields as well, arts and science and liberal arts too, and that's very extremely heartening. And rather missing the second question. What was the second
question? Was how does a student stand out? What are you looking for in an applicant? That's the key question here today, right? How do I get admission?
Yeah, so Aradhana, it's I don't think anything's changed in that. I think people just need to be very genuine. Write exactly what they have done. Too much of camouflaging, too much flowery language. Really, I think we've been around for too long to, not see that. The language, the articulation, I think has to be very grounded, and that's how we see it. Share real experiences that have surprised you. This is what I would tell any applicant. Talk about something that you excel in. I think by and large, Aradhana, that's how I would look at how anybody should. I think being honest and grounded is what I would say.
What was your acceptance ratio?
For our acceptance, as in you're talking about the application to.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so we fill in about. We are a small business school. We are not a very large business school. So we have 240 or 250 applications, and we select them from almost 25,000 applications.
Oh, wow.
So you can do the math. It's a very small conversion.
Okay. Thank you, Renuka. Amanda?
Okay, so I am humbled and awed by that because I have no idea how you get through that many files. Our pool is only around 6,000, and we have a graduating class of about 700. So our acceptance rate is a little higher than yours is. What I can share about the applicant pool, I'm not sure that much has necessarily changed over the past few years in terms of kind of the input. But again, I think the aspirational piece and the output and where people want to go after graduation has, again, as I just mentioned a little earlier, has modified just a little bit. And while yes, McKinsey and BCG were the top two employers, I think more on the applicant side, what we are hearing that people are more interested in working in product management, in data analytics, in tech. Now, they may change their mind once they get to school and kind of follow the herd who might think about pursuing consulting, but we're not seeing as many who on the way in during the applicant stage are saying, gosh, I'd really like to do investment banking, as we would have all the way back in the early 2000s, just as an example, or sales and trading. I mean, that just doesn't exist anymore in terms of placement or interest. So I'm not really sure necessarily that the applicant pool has changed too much. I think in terms of the focus on the applications, we are still one of the schools that is requiring the GMAT or the executive assessment as part of our application process. And for Columbia, and I'm just going to speak for us, I think that that's a really important part of our application process. We have a range in terms of the scores that we accept. Last year, I think the range of the class, I believe, was 550 to 780. It might have been a 790. Also could have been about a 530, but roughly somewhere in that range. The average score was somewhere in the 720s. Now, part of the reason that we are really keenly focused on the GMAT or the executive assessment has to do with thinking about the strength of the overall applicant pool and then the individuals that we are bringing in. We still continue to be delighted with the predictive capabilities of the GMAT and the executive assessment, and knowing that these candidates are going to be strong academically. They have kind of the rote skills to be trained by our faculty and to get through the program with hopefully as little struggle as possible. An MBA is a very difficult degree to pursue, but we want to make sure that we have very rigorous standards in place academically in the application process. So we are certainly a school that is going to continue to require the GMAT or the executive assessment. Now, with that in mind, I know that people have concerns, prospective students often express concerns. Well, I only have a 720. Well, a 720, I'm not going to be concerned about someone's ability to get through the program versus a 740 or a 750. There, again, we know that these are smart individuals, and there is also an element of luck, both in the application process, I think, as well as in the GMAT in terms of who you're bringing to that test on a given day. So my recommendation would certainly be to give yourself well advanced notice and practice in terms of preparing for the GMAT. And if you need to take it 1, 2, or 3 times to do the very best that you can and also have that element of luck on your side, then that's what you should do. That's what I did when I was preparing a very, very long time ago. Now, if you're also someone who excels in the integrated reasoning piece, and as far as Columbia goes, if you want to take the executive assessment, that is an assessment that we are absolutely thrilled with too. And we love the fact that the integrated reasoning score is actually wrapped into the total score that we receive. So I think for us, I want to make sure to stress that the GMAT is, or executive assessment, standardized test is an important element, but it is not the only element. I think Dr. Renuka really said it so well when you were talking about that element of authenticity as part of kind of the call it the softer side of your application. And so really being real in the language that you use as you're preparing your essays. I think also sharing that you're realistic in terms of your expectations about what our program can provide for you. So if you're coming from, I'm going to make this up as like a silly example, but if you're doing Teach for India and you've said all of a sudden, like, I want to go work in private equity. Well, there needs to be some type of understanding that there need to be perhaps some intermediate steps before one may be able to secure that type of a job. So that, yes, having like the authentic response that maybe that's what you'd like, but also realistic expectations that the programs can only deliver so much. And there may be some intermediate steps that an applicant would need to take in order to realistically achieve goals that one might present in the application. I also mentioned that element of luck piece, and I don't want that to be dismissed. I mean, Dr. Renuka was saying 25,000 applications, right? So, I mean, that's again a different animal than we're experiencing with only 6,000. There are people who we want to accept into the program, but we just don't have space, right? And so the element of luck comes into play when we're talking about the timing of the application. when are you applying? Are you applying early on in a cycle? Are you applying later on in a cycle? Maybe when all of the seats may be filled. So I would really encourage applicants to pay attention to kind of the life cycle of an application from the school's perspective. Do schools have rolling admissions? Do they have rounds? And really think strategically about when you can get together the strongest application, and then what that might mean in terms of timing when you're applying from the school side. So there may be all of the seats in the class that are available or fewer seats in the class that are available. So I would really encourage people to think about that aspect as well. And also the schools fit for you. And so getting to know the schools by either in-person visits or virtual visits. I think each school also likes to know that you've done research on its program to figure out why you might be a good fit, and not only what you get from the program, but what you can contribute to your classmates as well.